This is the circulation koha-USA circulation meeting for January 4th, 2022. And good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Morning. Or afternoon here.
So just looking at the agenda, we only have one topic. I'm going to see if I can share my screen successfully. Yeah, and it was by Michael from, are you Kansas or?
Yes, Central Kansas Library System.
Okay. And you're asking about rules.
Yeah, and I know circle rules are kind of a different animal in some ways, but I'm just curious what people do with trying to manage the different levels of the permissions. We've got a consortium here, and so it's a little bit different for us in some ways, but at the same time, it's it's circulation rules as well. And so the problem that I've been running into lately is you can either have specific rules for a patron category or for an item type or for both, but the I believe it's the category, patron category, all of those rules will always overrule all of the item type circulation rules, unless there's something that touches both both the item type and the category, I think is how it works. And so I'm running into problems where I would like the item types rules to be across the board, regardless of patron category, but all of the category rules are overriding those. And again, that's more of a consortium problem, but I don't know. I just thought I would throw it out there and see if anyone has any tips on how to manage that, or what you all do.
Well, I'm a district. Is there, I know Jason, you're a consortium. Is there anybody else who's a consortium here?
I am, but I'm not too sure how it works behind the scenes. I do know that we have, I don't know, say 13 libraries, and we have a generic loan rule for, say, books, and they go out for 4 weeks, and that's across the board, across all the libraries. And then after that, we get a little bit more granular, but I don't know how any of that is set up, unfortunately.
Okay.
I guess I can just say that I would err on the side of simplicity at all costs.
Yeah.
I can show you what our setup kind of looks like, but it's a mess. Here, let me share my screen.
I think all circ rules are just a mess in general.
Yeah. I'm gonna steal screen share here. So this is the dream. This is my most recently added library, where all they have is an all rule and a doesn't circulate rule, and then some self-registered rules. But most of my libraries are worse. So we try to build them from the ground up. So like if they have a rule that can be generic across the board. Sorry, is my screen working? I didn't check.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, good. So if they have a rule across the board, we try to just lean on that. But then, of course, we have to add the complexity as we grow. But I try to keep everything in just an all item type setting per library. On this library, we had to create an organization subset of the rules because they don't charge fines on their organizations. But yeah, that's kind of how we're laid out. And then I've started using these like tiered parent-child relationships, which connects the two item types, which is nice, because we do have to have rules for both the way we're set up so that the new items work right. We have to have two different item types for that, but this now allows us to limit all visual media to 7, regardless of whether it's new visual media or not. So yeah, that's kind of how we're at. Iowa is one of the worst because they don't charge juvenile fines, and we have 2 juvenile categories, so it's hyperinflated.
Oh my.
But I mean, if we didn't have that, then I could just be running off of all rules, which is the dream. And we do have some top level rules set, but for the most part, it's all falling down to individual libraries. And we do support local control in this, so every library gets to pick how things circulate. I did sort of an analysis of it at one point, and it's fairly common across the board. I have some that have longer loan periods and some that have shorter periods, but for the most part, we're at like a 2 to 3 week period. So we could entertain the idea of coming up with like a top level rule and then reworking it so that only the special rules are by library, but that sounds like a nightmare and a headache that I don't want to wrap my head around right now.
Right.
But yeah, erring on the side of simplicity would be my recommendation.
Okay. Yeah. And just when you're looking through the circle rules, the way they're arranged on the page, they auto arrange into so that they're applied from the top of the list down. Is that correct?
No, I don't think so. Daniel's
Oh.
sharing his. Let's see. So like it always goes from most specific to least specific, basically. So like if there's an all rule, that's going to be what it ultimately falls into. So like on here we've got Daniel's got display, Blu-ray, and DVD, and then display all. So it's gonna pick up the display, Blu-ray, and DVD rule before it hits the display all rule.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
ours
then-
is kind of a mess. So it's just that we have so many different patron types, and the circuit rules for them are just it's yeah, it's so broad. So
yeah,
But
and for us, I mean, we've got a lot of different patron types. As long as they're all behaving the same, I don't make a rule for every single combination. I mean, that's probably the thorough way to do it, but I think that leads to insanity.
yeah, what I actually do is I use the all rule for denying access or denying the ability to loan a certain material in some instances, but in others, if I can get the material all under one material type, I'll do it. But for the most part, it's just, that's how we have so many. We have to see what they can't circulate as opposed to what they can. So.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but does anybody else have any topics?
I have a question, and maybe it's silly, but this weekend we're doing our upgrade. And I know in previous upgrades, one problem we had is, and I had specifically, my permissions disappeared. So I was just kind of wondering if there are any gotchas out there for the folks who have already gone through the upgrade that I should watch out for. Any advice?
I've had trouble with account lines. Our finance reports, they tend to always break during upgrades, and it's just the most recent one has done something with the debits and the credits and set them in different types of schemas. If you do reports, hopefully this makes sense, but that's the one gotcha that really got me. And I use the batch permission editor a lot, and that recently changed, and so it's been acting funny. So if you use that, just upgrade it or update it to the most recent plugin version, and that seems to solve the problem.
Thank you.
And I've gotten in the habit of just running a report of all the permissions before we upgrade and then running it again after and making comparisons, just because things go fishy
Yeah, that's what
sometimes.
I ended up doing as well the last couple of times.
And
That's
then
genius. I should do that.
same thing with system preferences, because that also lets you see the new system preferences that come in, that you can see if something flipped or went wonky. We did have one issue with the system preference, the one that lets you hide things in the OPAC. For some reason, it was causing lots of 502 errors right after the upgrade. So I had to like clear it out and then re-enter the data there. And that fixed it. I don't know, some weird YAML thingy. But as far as permissions go, I don't think we had anything major. I haven't had major complaints, at least, of people losing abilities to do things.
Is this the Kim? Is this the 2105?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's supposed to happen Saturday night at this point, I guess. So it's already on our test server, so I've been playing around with stuff, but I was just kind of wondering, what I'm missing or something like that. I guess we'll figure it out.
Our that one preference where it was follow the calendar for days off when calculating hold expiration dates, that one got switched off. So I didn't realize that until we started getting holds expire on the 1st.
So if we ran a report like Jason suggested with our preferences, system preferences, that would show up, would it? Or if we compared the before and after? We'd figure it out.
You should be able to see, like, if you run it and then run it again and put them together and do like a diff checker or something, you should be able to see what's different.
Okay, thank you.
Jason, would you be open to sharing that report with a SQL?
Yeah, it's just, oh, it's very complicated. Here we go. Are you ready?
I thought it might be, yeah.
Select all from system preferences.
Hey.
Oh,
Oh, that's awesome.
that works.
Yeah.
And the same thing for permissions.
I don't think so. Let me see what I use for that. Permissions are nasty. Yeah. It's not a complicated report. There's not a lot of data there, but basically it's giving you each of the bits that are flipped for each borrower number. So you can see which patron account has which permissions. And then if you run it again after upgrade, you can compare and see if any of that changed.
Okay. And you just put them in Excel and use the use a formula to find any differences, basically.
Yeah. And I can't tell you how I did that. I don't remember.
That's what Google's for.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did we do before Google?
We had card catalogs. Any other topics?
Something, I guess, circulation-y related that's come up in the past few days for me is we're noticing some issues with transfers. So they changed a lot of stuff with transfers in the upgrade, and there's more tracking. It does more stuff. The issue we're running into is if an item is a location other than their home location and you check it in twice, then it cancels the transfer and leaves it hanging out it actually makes it available at the wrong library, which is not what it did before for us. If you check it in a third time, then it puts it back in transit again. So I opened a ticket with Bywater to look at it, and Andrew's been looking at it for me. He's working on filing a bug now. But at this point, I've got stuff floating out in space, basically, that says that it's available, but it's available at the wrong library. And in reality, in a courier bag somewhere. And
Did you run a report to figure that out? I mean, because you know what library it says available, but it's at the wrong. Is it the current library that is wrong? So it would be the current library? Like the home library is still okay, right?
The home library is still okay. Yeah, it's a little hinky. They show up on this new transfers to send report, which is the easiest way to see it. I can share my screen again. If I can find one. Probably that was my search finals. Okay, so they show up on this transfers to send report, which is one that I turned off. I'd hidden this because I thought it was only related to rotation. But if you click on that, you can see the ones that are a problem. So it gives you lots of information. But the problem is this isn't the behavior we expected. See, this one is setting at Iola and available because it got checked in twice instead of getting checked in once to trigger the return. So I guess the thought process behind the development here was that you would check this new report and then fix anything before you send it on to the next library. But that's a whole lot more steps than we're used to. And since we didn't really know about it, we haven't been doing it. So all of the stuff that's on this report is actually in transit, even though it's showing available. So I've staged my complaints about that. And hopefully we can get some sort of resolution before I get a bigger mess than I already have. So that's something to watch for after your upgrade, if you're in a consortium at least.
Yeah, and it's easy. It's so easy to like scan things in twice.
Right, and
Oh, dear.
like we sometimes encourage that because like you're checking to see if there's another hold on it or something like that. But now that second check-in is actually completely eradicating the transfer and putting it into limbo, which is not what we expected. I'm trying to think of other issues we came up with. You're Bywater, right, Kim? So,
yes, although our flow handles like Joe Sikowitz and those guys at Flow handle, you know, any complaints that we have and they go to file.
okay, so the one bug that I had the biggest complaint about was 29411, which was how the patron search works. If your patron search had a single result, then it would go to the details page instead of the checkout page when you're using that header bar, which I don't think has been patched in to like real Koha yet, but Bywater's patched that into their own special sauce, so you shouldn't have to deal with that one.
Okay, thank you.
Aha, that upgrade. All right, anybody got anything else? So far, we've been really happy about the upgrade. I mean, there's been a couple of tweaks, or a couple of issues, but for the most part, it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, it was surprisingly, for doing two upgrades in one, it was surprisingly easy for us too.
Yeah. Yeah. Has anybody found any new circ tricks that were pretty cool that you'd like to mention?
I do like the little icons that are on the patron's account that tells you whether or not they have special permissions. I believe it's a, let me double check here.
You've got a lightning bolt and a shield, I think.
Yes.
I can use my account because I don't have anything private on there. Oh, except for my email address, but yeah. So that, yeah, the lightning bolt and the shield, that's pretty fun.
I think that it's the lightning bolt for super librarian, and then the shield is for anyone with staff permissions.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of nice to see at a glance if you are looking at someone's account and you realize it's a staff account.
When you say staff, do you mean library staff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, anyone who has permission, any kind of permissions on the staff side.
So the way we have our system set up, anybody who works in the library, well, not anybody, people who need permissions other than a generic circ login have a login. And then, you know, because we're all like staff or students at the school, they also, that's a separate account. So I have 2 accounts actually.
You know, actually, this is an interesting question. With your guys, do you normally do 2 separate accounts for, you know, like a staff or a staff and then their staff account and then their personal account, or you just combine the 2?
We have 2 separate accounts.
2 separate accounts.
So when I'm at work, I'm logging in as my staff, you know, library staff. And then if I'm at home, or even if I just want to borrow a book from the consortium, I use my regular, you know, staff patron. I'm confusing them, but my employee, I guess I would call it employee patron account.
And do you use the same borrowing rules for your personal account? Are they?
I don't think they did, because sometimes when I try to check things out as the library staff, it gives me an error message or something, if I can remember correctly, because, you know, I don't do it very often. And if I do it, it's just by mistake. Like if I'm trying to test something, I have to remember to log in as a regular patron on my regular account. And because sometimes when I try to do it as a Helm staff member, I get an error message. Would that be maybe because we don't have the loan rule set up for that? Maybe, perhaps.
Probably. I've never actually tried that. We use just one account for staff members, and we just adjust we have circ rules for staff members, so it's kind of a perk of being a staff. So
yeah, when they set us up, so we were a new consortium, and when we all came in, that's the way they set us all up.
Yeah, we use a single account as well. So the little enhancement to add shields and lightning bolts is helpful, because a lot of times my librarians don't realize that changing the patron category doesn't take away permissions. So they think that they're removing a staff member, but that person can still log in and do things. So I made a point to encourage them to check for that and tell me if somebody that has permissions shouldn't. But yeah, we just enable permissions on the same account as their personal account, which has been confusing in the past. And I've had librarians go in and log into the OPAC and change their password and then not be able to log into the staff client because they thought they were 2 different accounts. So that's been a problem, but for the most part, it works for us to do it that way.
There is now in circulation history with the upgrade, there is the option to see which library staff member did the circulation. And that's something that I believe it has to be turned on with a system preference. I don't remember which one that is, but so instead of just seeing the circulation and when an item was checked out, it'll actually tell you which staff member circulated the item to the patron.
I turned that on and it's already come in handy once because somebody came back and asked me something and I was like, all right, let me dig into the logs. Let me try and figure out who did what. And then I was like, oh yeah, we can just go to their circ history and see which staff member did it. So pretty handy. I don't remember what that system preference is either, but it exists. I can confirm that much.
Yeah, I think I remember it as well, and it has been pretty cool. Just the whole upgrades on the logs, it's been a lot nicer in general. So
I still have a lot of trouble with circ logs. I don't know what my deal is, but I can't. Like I'll get cataloging log information, but not circ log information a lot of the time. Maybe I have a setting off.
does anybody use the interlibrary loan modules at all?
No, that's a dream of mine to do koha to koha interlibrary loan amongst the Kansas Koha Consortia, but I haven't had time to even think about that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, we were talking with Bywater and Click, Colorado. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but and it didn't pan out. There wasn't enough there. So, but if anybody gets it running, I'd definitely like to take a look at it.
Yeah, I've asked Bob about it too, I think, and from what I understand, it's just going to take a lot of development work to make it work how I want it to work. So we just need to, I think the Kansas libraries could get our test servers hooked up with it and start playing with it and figure out where the money needs thrown. So that may be something we look into.
Oh, I don't have that on.
Yeah, it is off by default. After the upgrade speed, you have to turn it on. And it's not retroactive, so you only get information moving forward.
Yeah. I'll take a look. I thought I found some stuff that was pretty interesting with the logs that showed who's checking out, but I'll do some digging later and then decide whether or not to turn it on or not. But it's always helpful to have more information, but yeah. Any other topics?
I have an interesting one that I guess Michael probably may have answers to for your consortium. Does anybody track unfilled holds? This is something that we're supposed to be reporting on the state survey, and it's not something that we've never used koha to track because I still can't wrap my head around a way to make koha track it. But I just wondered if anybody else has found a way to make koha track unfilled hold requests.
I don't think we track those here. Let me double check though. Let me check something.
I think for us, it's always been one of those, you should be jotting that down throughout the year, which sucks because we don't want to do that because if Koha can do it for us, Koha should do it for us. But there's not really a logical way to, unless we institute like a new status where they have to keep it in missing unfilled for a year so we can run stats on it. I can't think of a good way to do it.
Right, because it doesn't record things the way that because it bounces back and forth on the holds queue all the time. It doesn't really. Yeah. I mean, the only thing I've done is I've set up an automatic report that just lists everything that's on the holds queue, and I just get it sent to me. I think that's something that George helped me set up. And so if I need to, I can go back and look at the holds queue to see if something was setting somewhere for going back to a library for a long time and not getting picked up, but there's no way to do that from that for system-wide for stats that I know of.
Yeah.
I would almost think that might have to be a development or something. But
I think it is something that like Shareit does, and we're all about adding features from other ILSs to koha, so maybe I should look at that and see. Although Shareit's big and clunky and not my favorite thing. I'll have to think about that some more.
yeah, I'll have to think about, because something seems to be, I seem to think that there's something we do along those lines, but I can't think of it at this point. So I'll keep thinking about that too, and I'll let you know if I remember something.
And I will also dig through George's stuff. Because he might have some magic in there that I'm unaware of.
It's very possible.
Yeah, we need like some. Oh, Jennifer mentioned there's an unfilled holds report, but it catches everything. We need something that's like retroactively tracking anytime a hold gets placed, and then both from both ends. If the borrower doesn't ultimately get the hold filled, or the lender doesn't ultimately fill the hold, we need something to track that. And I think that would be a development as far as I can think.
Yeah, and that would actually be really helpful, because if you could kind of, especially if you had at certain times, you could see an average response time or something like that, would be a bonus. But that's even further down the road, I'm sure.
Sounds like a development for sure. We're cooking up here.
We have a report that gives us, and it doesn't encompass everything you're talking about, but it gives me the holds, holds more than 30 days old, meaning they weren't filled. You know, the hold wasn't filled. Would that be helpful at all, or is it just not what you're going for at all?
So are those like outstanding holds that haven't been
Yeah.
filled? Yeah.
Yes.
See, we need something that's like, we had a hold, it got canceled because it couldn't get filled, and we need that
Okay.
tracked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll keep thinking about it. We can keep thinking about it. We could make that a circ sig development. I didn't turn my camera on. You don't see all my cheesy smiles.
All right. Anything else? No. Going once, going twice. Actually, we did have some great conversations, so this was good. Good start to the new year. But,
thanks for all your upgrade advice.
yeah. Anybody doesn't have any other topics, and we'll try and come up with some more next year, or next meeting. But generally, we can end this meeting, and hopefully everybody else has a great day. I'm going to stop recording right now.